विद्या ददाति विनयं विनयध्याति पात्रता पात्रत्वं धनं माप्नोति धनात् धर्मं तथा सुखम्. This shloka means that knowledge imparts politeness, which in turn gives worthiness. From that worthiness, one earns a living, which leads to the path of virtue and happiness. Good morning, one and all. On behalf of Reva Business School, I extend a warm welcome to today's knowledge sharing session. I, Pratham Patil, from MBA first year, it's with immense honor and gratitude that I extend a warm welcome to our Honorable Chancellor Dr. P. Shamaraju, Vice Chancellor in charge Dr. N. Ramesh, Pro Vice Chancellors, Dean, Directors, HODs, and our esteemed members of Reva family. Your presence is truly appreciated, and it highlights your firm commitment to our community and the values we uphold. We are privileged to have you among us and look forward to a day enriched with insightful and collaborative spirit. Welcome you all once again. Today we are gathered here at Reva Business School, which has excelled in its literature series by consistently aligning its core objectives to foster critical thinking, promote industry-relevant knowledge, and encourage a global outlook. Through these series, we have created a platform that brings academic theory in with real-world applications, thereby preparing students to be innovative leaders in their respective fields. We are honored to have our esteemed guest today. Let us with a warm welcome Dr. Venkat Iyer, sir. Welcome you, sir. Dr. Venkat Iyer is a barrister and academic based in Northern Ireland. He is attached to the School of Law at Ulster University, where he teaches media law, constitutional law, and business law. Dr. Iyer has been in legal practice since 1981 and is a trained mediator. In the year 2003-04 and again in 2012, the Royal Government of Bhutan invited him to advise and draft media laws for that kingdom. In the year 2007, he was appointed as a consultant by the World Bank to design a program on continuing legal education for Kenya. In the year 2011, he was asked to review the Broadcasting Act in Vanuatu and to recommend changes to the media law regime in that country. Since the year 2012, he has been advising the Burmese government on a wide range of media law related matters. Dr. Iyer is the author of a number of books and the editor of Commonwealth Lawyer and the Roundtable, that is Commonwealth Journal of International Affairs, both published from London. Now I request Vice Chancellor Sir to escort Honorable Chancellor Sir to felicitate our esteemed guest. Now I request Honorable Chancellor Sir to address.
Very good morning. We are fortunate to have Dr. Venkat Iyer. I have attended 2-3 sessions here only. Each and every word comes out from his mouth is useful for everyone, I can say. Today session is to MBA students. Dr. Venkat Iyer, I will take a little time, 7 to 10 minutes I may take. My dream is build the society. To build the society, educational institutions, education is the right tool. In education, who become managers, administrators, they are also, they will play the vital role. Your dean might have told about what is that I am expecting from MBA students. Last year during my exit meeting with MBA students, when one or two questions came about the placements, I told, how many of you really ready to make your hands dirty, work in the sun? I will provide the job. Who are all sitting here, or maybe 500 students were sitting. I told, I am ready to provide the job and you will all become entrepreneurs. They have stopped there. They are not ready. Most of the students or anybody nowadays, they want pizzas, AC room, fan, very comfortable. They are not ready to come out of their comfort zone. That is not your fault. That is the, I don't know what is system fault or the surrounding and circumstance problem, I don't know. But you might have heard that I always speak about Reva is different. We should be unique. Whoever working here also should be unique, role models. At the same time, students also who are passing out should be leaders. Alone I can't do that. Everybody should have that passion, commitment, concern, and everybody should understand the vision of the management and purpose why we started Educational Institute. I came from a small village without chapel. I came to Bangalore, I can say. But today, there are thousands of people, directly, indirectly, I can say even now lakhs, directly or indirectly, they are employed. I have given the employment. We have leased out 60 million square foot in Bangalore, Chennai and Hyderabad. You can understand how many people are working in that. Out of top 10 multinational companies like Google, Accenture, IBM, and so those companies are working from our facilities in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai. Why I am telling this? When I can do without, I always claim that I am uneducated. I have the degree of commerce, but that is part time. That is I have to work till 10 o'clock in the field and run and go to. That is a part time like. I failed in PUC, then I completed my BCom. It was not easy, but I came to Bangalore for job. I didn't take the job in bank, but I wanted to start my own this thing. I started. This is my 50 years completed in Bangalore. I started with a small contract with 3,700 rupees. When the bank employment, they offered me only 300 rupees, but I got in that 3,700 of 1,000 rupees profit. That is how I started my journey. Today, Divyasri is one of the top developers in South India. In educational field, In educational field, I accidentally came to this. Again, having come here, I understood what are all we have to provide. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about education, but I understood. Oh, what are all I am supposed to provide. I am doing that. Even every month, fourth Saturday, we meet for Chintan. In every month, I always throw the challenge. Sky is the limit. I am talking about all the staff. Are you ready to grab from me, from the management, what are all you want? When you ask 10, I am giving you 11, not 9. So what else I can do? Openly, I will tell even in TV channels, educational institutions are responsible for the society's behavior. If rapes are happening, coonies are happening, who are they? They are also somewhere they studied, might have studied somewhere. They might 10th failed or PU failed or discontinued degrees, all these things. But somewhere they studied, So these are all happening. Why I am telling us today this with pain I am talking. Even my our competitors like other chancellors when we meet, they will tell you are openly educating people. You are giving tips for everybody to question us. I am not bothered about that. I have come to build the society. I will do that as much as possible. I am not making money here. I came here to do service. If even I told several times with our staff, if I have spent this much of time in Divyasri, I could have built another 30-40 million more. I could have made money. But that is not important for me. But the satisfaction, what I have in here, that is that I can't value for that. We get the rent per day 1 crore. But still, I never say that we have money. I never say. I want to be as simple as possible. Even at my at home, I will I will do my work. I will not compromise in keeping myself fit. At 76, I will challenge to anybody for that matter, even youngsters. You come, you run or walk. You do in gym, you come. Why I am telling all these things? As a head of this family, head of the institute, I should practice whether it is fitness or timing or discipline, anything for that matter. Down the line, everybody will follow. I strongly believe that. So coming to today's I have to appreciate and congratulate the team that is who are working in RBS and for organizing this distinguished lecture series. Especially I have to talk about Dr. Shubha, joined here as a just lecturer. I recognized her some last maybe 13, 14 years back, but her service is 19th year. Then I have seen her how she presents in the review meetings. Out of so many people, she used to present exactly the realities, not just cooked up figures. That is how I recognized her. Then I promoted her and sent to Sanjay Nagar as a principal. She was not ready. She was crying. I don't know anything about administration. I don't want to go. I told, I am there. You go and take over. That is how she started. This commerce and management courses. She is the one who built from 60 intake to now both put together. Intake itself is about 900. I always talking about management course and commerce course, these are my pets courses, and who are all sitting here. How many of you really ready to become the administrators? Just taking a MBA degree will not work. What is that you learn through this distinct lecture series? Or even I spoke to her recently. Why is MBA students have to sit in the class? Who are all afford to travel? Let them go and explore. We will give the degree, let them take the admission here. You provide the resources, resource means academic resources, or I am not talking about the money here. If you are ready, you need not sit here. They will facilitate to go and explore in other countries and other universities. You need not sit here. Here, whether 5 or 10 or anybody, any number you can say. Now, Dr. Vishesh Rao also here. It is your duty. I don't want my children who are offered to go and explore, interacting with many universities across the world, and any companies for that matter. They will learn better than what they learn in this in the class. That is this is my suggestion. This I do not I will not tell simply like because in the podium I am discussing this. How see, without even without education I became entrepreneur. How? So today I am not an engineering graduate. Even today, if I go to the sites, the engineers who has got 20 years, 30 years, 40 years experience, they will be sweating. That is practical experience, exploring mindset, and you should go and explore, learn. For that, it is not easy sitting in the class or bunking the class. Even today, I will see you people coming late. I told several times, MBA students should be role models. How many of you really tell me? I can say, in spite of they who are all working here in RBS, they are very strict. Even today, you require monitoring for even to attend the class before 8:25. In fact, not necessary to monitor that. But why we are monitoring again? You should become the disciplined citizens, disciplined soldiers of this country, and you should become the role models, and all of you should become the administrators, and wherever the our students who are passing out go out, they should go out like a leaders. You should lead. That is my dream. Through you I can build these things, and as if we become administrators under you, there are thousands of people who will be trained. That is my dream. I am expecting from these MBA students. So now, I think let us see how many of you come forward. Admission you have taken, Now go and explore. What is that you want? Which country you want to go? Which university you want to interact? Dr. Vishesh Rao, it is his duty now to facilitate those things. I don't want. See, you can say, my parents are not afford to spend that time. Not necessary. There are ways. There are ways to, what is that? To get the resources. It is possible. If you have will, if you have that with a mindset, nothing is impossible. It will happen. Anyway, why I took this opportunity to speak all this, because this is what running in my mind. This I can't speak in exit meetings. And this time already I told, no student should come and raise any questions or during exit meetings. I told, that is what the day for us that is started, I told. Because whether about the employment, the placements or syllabus or anything for that matter, I told. So you should have that hunger and urge and willpower. You can demand, we are ready to provide, but you can demand only if you are perfect. Your performance, Your behavior, your discipline, your mindset, your hunger, your maturity, all these things matters. You should qualify to demand. That is what I expect. At least who are all sitting here will be role models. In the campus, you should bring in the change. And if that happens, yes, he will also be party for my fulfill my dream. All the best. God bless you.
Thank you for your motivational words, sir. Now it's with great pleasure that I hand over the session to our esteemed guest of the day, Dr. Venkat Iyer. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning to all of you. I am, as always, delighted to be here. I now feel very much a part of the Reva family, so I don't need to be too formal in terms of making introductory remarks. But I hope that you will all have taken the message that your Chancellor gave in his speech just a few minutes ago. It was an inspiring speech, and it is up to all of you to live up to the expectations that he had expressed. And I got the impression that he was speaking from his heart, which means that he meant everything that he said. Now, it is not my place to say anything further on some of the things that he mentioned, but there is one aspect of his speech which I thought I should underline. It may sound like a very small matter, but it is extremely important, and it has to do with his emphasis on punctuality. Very, very important. India is a great country. India is a country with great talent. But I'm sorry to say that by and large, of all the great qualities people in India have, punctuality is not one of them. Everywhere. I'm not talking only about education institutions. Now, it is for you, the younger generation, to change that. And you can change it. It is very easy for you to be able to bring that change about. Now, because I said at the beginning that I feel like a member of the Reva family, I can speak frankly. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. I've done so many lectures and other events in Reva just during this visit. And I've also done it during my previous visits. And almost every time when I say to these very kind organizers who are always with me, they bring me to the venue of each event, I say, come, let's rush because we are only 10 minutes away from the start time of the event. They say, no, don't worry, relax. And they usually keep me in a holding room for a certain length of time. Now, I get panicky because I always want to be 1 or 2 minutes early so that we start on time. And invariably, they say students are still coming. That is a true fact. You're all coming, I don't deny that. But why don't you come 5 minutes early? Because then what will happen is the auditorium will be settled, everybody will be in their place, and we can start on time. It is not that difficult. I know you're all students, you probably go to sleep late and therefore wake up late, but still, you make the effort, it will live with you for the rest of your life, this habit of punctuality. And I tell you, there are other parts of the world, not only the West. I will give you an Asian example where punctuality is considered to be so important that occasionally, sadly, people have given up their lives because they were impunctual. I don't want you to do that. I'm just telling you the importance placed on punctuality. I'm talking now about the country called Japan. You know, I go there, I deliver many lectures every year, and the way they do it is not only does everybody turn up on time, they time everything so precisely. So there are times when, for example, an event is starting at 10 o'clock and they will tell me as the speaker that I need to start my lecture at 10:03. Why? Because from 10 o'clock to 10:03, the person who is going to introduce me will be speaking. And he or she will start at 10 o'clock sharp and end at 2 seconds before 10:03. And I will be expected to start my talk at 10:03 sharp. That is the level of punctuality that they insist on. And look what great strides Japan has made. It is not impossible. Japan was a defeated country only a few decades ago. India has all the advantages. So please take at least that message from your chancellor and show it in practice that you are able to heed his message. You can show other things later. You can't, for example, show him immediately that you've all become entrepreneurs. That will take a while. But at least these small things you should do. Okay, I'm sorry to have taken a little more time than I would normally have done, but I think it is important. Okay, now the topic of my talk today is, in simple terms, mediation. Although the actual title is the role of mediation training in a successful managerial career. So I am going to talk about mediation, and I can talk with pleasure about this subject because I am very enthusiastic about mediation. Now, as a lawyer, generally speaking, there is a tendency to push litigation because most lawyers would make their bread and butter through litigation. But I am now convinced, not just in relation to countries like India, but even in countries where the legal system is much more efficient, that mediation is a better way of resolving disputes. Not even arbitration, though arbitrations are helpful in some situations, but mediation is something that I think should be encouraged, and is particularly important in a country like India. Why? Because the litigation system is practically dysfunctional. If you file a case in India, civil suit, there's a very good chance that the case will go on for about 30 years before you get a verdict. It is just not worth it. Many people actually die before their cases are heard. So mediation is the way out. Mediation is quick. It is also less expensive than a litigation. So mediation is important. So I am going to talk in very laudatory terms about mediation. It is becoming, fortunately, quite popular in some parts of the world, not in India, because unfortunately Indian lawyers are still not willing to give up their bad habits and make the kind of obscene money that they are making for them. They think that if we allow mediation to become widespread, then their incomes will fall. They're actually wrong in doing that, because there is so much of work in India that everybody will be occupied. For you as well, mediation is a career opportunity. I know you're not lawyers, but still, in your managerial career as well, mediation can be used, and used effectively. Because remember, when you work in the corporate sector, there are many situations where disputes arise, not only between companies, but also within companies. So in your own company, there might be points of friction. So to resolve those, mediation is a very good tool. And therefore, even in a business career, you need to think positively about the many opportunities that you will get to apply mediation skills. And so the more you give attention to this, the better. And of course, some people become professional mediators, even in industry. And you can specialize. There are so many opportunities nowadays to do that. So do consider mediation as a serious career opportunity. Now, I'm going to just give you an idea of what is mediation, how does mediation work in practice, and what are the challenges. I've been told that I should speak for about 40 minutes, so I won't be able to go through everything, but I'll try to give you some idea of what is possible and what is feasible. The first thing I need to tell you is that mediation only works where there is a genuine dispute and where there is a willingness on the part of people involved in the dispute to have the dispute resolved. Why do I say this? I say this because there are many cases going through the Indian legal system where disputes are manufactured, and disputes are not in that sense genuine. And there's a vested interest on the part of one or more parties to keep the dispute going, not to get it resolved. That is why you'll find lawyers very reluctant to have a case decided quickly. They'll seek adjournments, because if you're sitting pretty, then you can harass the other side, which of course should not be the objective, but that is what happens. And therefore, there should be a good faith willingness on the part of the parties to seek a resolution. Now, what is mediation? Mediation is a private, privileged process which can run consistently with other methods of dispute resolution. So it is a private resolution system. So it has some advantages. You don't go out and wash your dirty linen in public. So that's one advantage of mediation. In its very essence, it is a negotiation process which is assisted by a third party, and the third party is the mediator. It is very consensual in nature, and that means that people have to agree before an outcome is reached. Parties, therefore, retain a lot of control in mediation, unlike in litigation. In litigation, the judge is in control, whereas in mediation, the parties are in control. It is possible for a party to walk out of a mediation at any time. It is not possible for a party to walk out of litigation at any time, unless, of course, they are willing to pay a very heavy price. So, the consensual nature of mediation is extremely important. And even at the end of the process, parties have a right to decide whether they want to agree to the outcome or they don't want to agree to the outcome. So party autonomy is respected a lot in the process of mediation. And very generally speaking, the outcome of mediation is non-binding, very generally speaking. But of course, you can make it binding in certain ways. Now, I don't have the time to go into that, and secondly, it will become too technical for you because you're not at the moment ready to become mediators. You'll have to go through a lot of training. But generally speaking, what happens in mediation is that the mediator has the freedom to suggest an equitable outcome for the parties. In other words, an outcome that satisfies the requirements of equity or fairness. In other words, to suggest a fair outcome. So there is a lot of flexibility in the mediation process. Litigation is frequently very rigid. There are certain things you have to do when you go to court. You can't escape from them. But in mediation, there is a lot of flexibility. And that is, of course, one of the central attractions of alternative dispute resolution. You'll come across this phrase ADR a lot in the context of mediation, arbitration, etc. There can be different types of mediation, but principally there are two types. One is institutional mediation, the other is ad hoc mediation. So institutional mediation usually takes place where you have an institution like a mediation center. And nowadays, every high court has got a mediation center. And so the mediation center then takes up the job of mediating. And there are people who are empaneled to do the mediating. In certain disputes, for example, family law disputes, mediation is nowadays considered almost obligatory. So when somebody files a case in the family court, then typically the judge first asks the lawyers, have you attempted mediation? And if you have not attempted mediation, please go and attempt it and then come back to me if necessary, because very likely the mediation would have solved your problems. But as I said, they don't solve problems where there's no good faith willingness to try mediation. And mediation is usually conducted in private sessions, sometimes individually with the parties, but sometimes jointly. All that is flexible. There are certain instruments which are helpful by way of guidance for mediation. India has recently passed a law on mediation. I personally completely disagree with that law. Okay, completely. I completely disagree with the idea of the law. Forget the law itself. I'm convinced that if that law is applied, it is going to make the situation worse than it is now. So the solution is worse than the disease. That is a tragedy. I don't have the time to go into the details. I'm very happy later on, if you ask me questions, to give you some idea of why I say that. Now, do you have to have any special qualifications to become a mediator? And the answer is, generally speaking, no. Anybody can become a mediator. In fact, one of the great virtues of the Indian system is that traditionally a lot of mediation has been done and is being done by elders in the community. So, for example, there is a family dispute. The Indian approach has always been for the elders in the family to come in, bring the parties together, have a chat, and try to resolve the situation. So that fund of experience is available in abundant measure. And it is possible, therefore, for ordinary people to become mediators. Although, of course, sometimes if you have expertise in a particular area, it makes your job so much easier. So, for example, if you are in the construction industry and there's a dispute relating to your business, then if you know something about the construction industry, you will become a better mediator, or at least it's easier for you to become a mediator because you'll understand the technical terms, the processes, etc. So you can specialize if you want as a mediator. And of course, nowadays, there are institutes that offer qualifications, formal qualifications for mediators. So if you wanted to train as a mediator, as I have done, then you can enroll on one of these courses. They're useful. I wouldn't dismiss them. They're quite useful. They are unfortunately quite expensive. The good ones are really expensive. And they teach you some of the skills. Ultimately, you will have to perfect those skills through experience. There is a very big institution called CEDR, and CEDR is the one that accredits a number of other institutions. So it is possible to acquire formal qualifications. But as I said, you don't need to. There are many situations where a person who is sensible and reasonable can become a good mediator. It is important in mediation for all the parties to have trust in the mediator. So the mediator has to be a respectable person who is also neutral, who is also seen to be neutral. Otherwise, there's a possibility that one or the other parties might say, the mediator is biased. So that is important. Now, what are the disputes that are amenable to mediation? I would say many disputes are amenable to mediation. And it all depends on the willingness of the parties, whether they want to go into mediation or not. Typically, family law disputes are very amenable to mediation. Why? Because to take family disputes to the court is not a good thing. You're dealing with human emotions, and particularly when husband and wife fight, then there is collateral damage caused to children. And you don't normally want these kinds of fights to be taken public. They should be resolved privately as far as possible. So mediation is a very good tool to resolve family disputes. Commercial disputes can also be resolved through mediation. There's a lot of that happening in many parts of the world. But of course, there are certain disputes which cannot be resolved through mediation. For example, if it's a criminal law case, somebody has committed a crime, let's say fraud, then you cannot allow mediation to resolve that situation because the public interest requires that the offender is punished in some way or the other. Mediation, therefore, has its limitations. Now, you may have read in the newspapers of cases that come up occasionally in India where a judge says, when a case is taken to the court, for example, let's say it's a case involving, unfortunately, rape. The case goes before a judge, and if in a few of them, the judge has actually told the alleged rapist, we will settle this case. How will we settle it? You marry the person whom you raped. Now, this is outrageous. But it happens. And that is the judge's conception of mediation. So he's trying to be a mediator between the parties, and he's saying, my solution to this problem is for the rapist, alleged rapist, to marry the rape victim. That is terrible. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. That is not mediation. Okay, so there are limitations to what can be done by way of mediation. Mediations definitely help in keeping the costs quite low, because in litigation, as you know, there is a lot of money involved. There are different types of mediation. There can be a mediation which is called the deal maker mediation, where the mediator comes with a predetermined solution, which he then browbeats the parties into accepting. I wouldn't prefer that kind of mediation because it takes away the essential purpose of mediation. Then there is the orchestrator type of mediation, which is more democratic and which is more consensual. And here the mediator probes the parties extensively on their positions and their perceptions, and he genuinely conciliates. A third type of mediation can be called evaluative mediation, where the mediator gives the parties an informed view of the merits of their respective cases. But even here, there is a lot of autonomy given to the parties to decide what the outcome should be. You can even think about preventative mediation, where attempts are made to stop disagreements becoming disputes and disputes becoming conflicts. So that is also possible. Now, how far should a mediator go when he is doing mediation? He has to be very careful about what his limits are. He can't just impose solutions on the parties. The mediator should only facilitate the arrival of the parties to a solution. He should not ideally impose his views, but he does have a role in terms of persuading the parties, and persuasion is quite important. How does mediation normally happen? Typically, there is an initial joint session where all the parties are brought together around a table. The mediator makes his introductory remarks, he lays the ground, he lays down the rules, etc. And normally, this will be followed by private sessions with each party. And then he tries to find out from each party what their expectations are, what their grievances are, and what possible solutions they think can meet their expectations. And then he goes to the other party or parties, does the same thing. Then there might be another joint session, and eventually they work it out. Mediation is not easy. And remember, mediation also happens at government levels. If there's a dispute between one country and another, you can have a mediation. And a lot of that mediation happens behind the scenes. They're not public at all, naturally, because you want a secret process which will allow parties to talk freely. So between India and Pakistan, for example, there have been many attempts at mediation which you don't know about at all. And sometimes the parties involved are ordinary private people. They will not make their names known, and anybody who is in that position should never be a publicity-seeking person. They should be very quiet. They should just be in the background and keep doing things. So there's that as well, which happens from time to time. Can the mediator use carrots and sticks? In other words, incentives and disincentives? And the answer is, broadly speaking, yes. But he has to be very careful that he doesn't, as I said, impose his views. So he can say to a party, if you don't do this, then you might face the following consequences. So it might be better for you to do this, but it's up to you. So it is possible for that to happen. Consent is extremely important. I see that I'm coming quite close to the end of my time, so I'll wrap up by just saying one or two things. In mediation, it is very important also for there to be confidentiality. because if you don't have confidentialities, mediation may not succeed. And it is particularly important for the mediator to keep confidentiality, because otherwise the parties will not trust the mediator. In mediation, what happens is you sometimes come across information that is not available more generally, and which can never feature in litigation. So parties may say to you something very confidentially. You as a mediator should have the capacity to keep it confidential. And if you want to reveal something to another party in the dispute, you always have to take the permission of the party giving you confidential information. You cannot make your own judgment about whether something should be disclosed or not. Very occasionally, it is possible for a mediator to come across information that he considers shocking. So, if a party tells a mediator that they've committed a crime, nobody else knows about it, should the mediator keep that information confidential? Of course not, because he has a duty to inform the authorities about a crime that somebody has confessed to. So there are those kinds of exceptions to the rule on confidentiality. And of course, the mediator himself should never be guilty of misconduct. When that happens, there can be serious consequences. One other thing about mediation is, of course, that there should be enough resources given. Now, typically in a mediation, what happens is that the costs are shared 50-50, unlike in litigation. So that's another incentive which will work in favor of mediation. At the end of the process, you might get an agreement which is normally not binding, but which can be made binding. And of course, if it is a dispute that has already been referred to the court, then the parties can go to the court and say, we have reached a solution. We have reached an agreement which we would like to implement through the court. And that is possible as well. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there is a lot going for mediation. And even in a managerial career, it is possible for mediation to be seen as a very valuable tool and resource. Therefore, in conclusion, I would say you must think about acquiring mediation skills and even consider getting formal qualifications for mediation. Actually, I have a practical suggestion for REVA, and that is that REVA should include mediation skills in its curriculum for example, management students, for RBS students. And that will be a good thing, even if it's only a small part of the curriculum. It could be a module, it could be less than a module. It is something worth taking into account. I see that the dean of your your business school is not present at the moment, but I hope some of the other staff who are present will pass on this information. I'm going to end there because I have spoken for the length of time that was allocated to me, but I'm very happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you. I'm assuming that there will be a mic going around. Yes, I can see somebody at the back bringing a mic. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Very good morning, sir. Thank you for the insightful lecture.
Thank you.
So mediation in our daily lives, we see in geopolitics, conflicts between countries, in companies where there are again disagreements. So mostly these are in legal terms, right? So there is a chance of this extending or going to a court. So to avoid that, we use mediation as a tool. So my question is, how can mediation be used in a non-legal corporate environment where there is no chance of the matter going to the court? How can we resolve that? Or what key things should be kept in mind to develop this mindset to avoid conflicts or to resolve conflicts where there is no chance of the matter going to the court?
Okay. Good question. That is what I meant by preventative mediation. So you prevent a dispute, you prevent a situation from becoming a dispute. Now, that is not easy to predict because sometimes a dispute arises very quickly and in unexpected circumstances. But you can still have some judgment of the possibility of a dispute. And then you try to bring the parties together, you bang heads together, you try to make sure that there is no escalation of the tensions that lead to a dispute. But I would slightly disagree with one of your premises, and you said that there are disputes that cannot go to a court. That is not strictly correct, at least in countries like India, because in India, almost anything goes to the court. Okay? It is not right. In fact, I sympathize with what you said, but I have to correct you in terms of the factual position. It is not a good idea to take many things to court. So in the corporate world, I'll give you one real life example with which you must all be familiar. Do you remember about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a dispute between the Ambani brothers. It was a very big dispute. It was a corporate dispute, okay, at one level. Of course, it started as a personal dispute. But that dispute could be taken to court. So don't be under the impression it cannot be taken to court. If anything, I'm sure some lawyers would have told either brother, come on, let's go to court, because there's a lot of money for the lawyers in such cases. Okay. But what did they do? Sensibly, at least initially, the family decided to resort to mediation. And in particular, they used Mr. Kamath, KM Kamath, KV Kamath, formerly of the ICICI Bank, as a mediator. They used other mediators also. So, a large part of the settlement between the brothers happened because of mediation. But of course, some of the outcomes of the mediation will have to go to court because you need, for example, you need to separate the business entities. Now that will have to be done in a legal way. So that can happen. So to that extent, I would differ from you, but your general point is well made. You also referred at the beginning to disputes between countries, international disputes. You're absolutely right. There are so many of them. And remember, in the case of international disputes, there is no real court. You hear a lot of nonsense being spoken about the International Court of Justice. Actually, it's not a court, although it is called a court. It is not a court. It doesn't have any powers of enforcement in the way that a proper court has. So I would say for international disputes, mediation is actually a very good way of trying to bring a reasonable solution or reach a reasonable solution. So I'll give you one example of a situation in geopolitics which is very difficult to take to any public forum. It has to do with the capture of individuals by another country. So you actually have one example of that already, Kulbhushan Jadhav. Do you remember that name? Now, this man was arrested and detained by the Pakistani agencies in inside Pakistan on the Pak-Iran border. Now, normally these situations can be diffused if there was private, confidential mediation between the parties. And normally also in such situations what happens is if the national of country A is captured by country B, then for the release of that person, country A agrees to release somebody who is in the custody of country B. So there are those kinds of deals being done very privately. Nobody would know about them. But on wider issues as well, on geopolitics, there is a lot of private mediation taking place. So I'll give you another example which has now become public, so you should all know about it. I'm not telling you anything confidential. Again, between India and Pakistan, there was informal mediation happening, not now, about 10 years ago, through the good offices of a businessman, of an Indian businessman called Sajjan Jindal. Now, Jindal is, as you know, a prominent businessman who is part of the Jindal Steels enterprise. He was a friend of Nawaz Sharif in Pakistan, and he was therefore able to attempt mediation on some outstanding issues. Of course, they didn't yield a lot of results, but that is how it works on the international level. So it is not something that you should dismiss out of hand. Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, sir.
Good
This is
morning.
Atish, assistant professor from RBS.
Yeah.
In your lecture, you mentioned that a mediator come across, for example, the other person is committed a murder, then he should give that information to the authority
Yeah.
bodies. If that person is a lawyer,
Yeah.
that mediator is a lawyer, how the vulnerable situation is, because the lawyer is bound to protect his client by hook or crook. That's his first job. But the second is, he know that he committed he done the murder. Then if he say to the other authorities, then it will be violating his first rule. So how do you see this kind of a situation from the lawyer's perspective as well as the client's perspective? Thank you.
Okay. In the scenario that you have outlined, there is a very fundamental mistake you're making. When a lawyer acts as a mediator, he doesn't act as a lawyer. He throws away his legal robes. He is just a mediator. He is not a lawyer. That has to be made very clear. He is not acting as a lawyer. He'll still be a lawyer, but he's not acting as a lawyer. And secondly, that person who confesses to a crime is not his client in the way that you have a lawyer-client relationship. So he's in a different situation completely. And every person has a duty to report crime. Okay, all of you have if somebody comes to you and says, I committed a crime, you have a duty, depending on the nature of the crime. If it's a serious crime, you have a duty to report it to the authorities, not always the police, but someone else. I mean, simple things like, for example, within RBS, if somebody does something that is against the law, against the rules, and you come to know of it, you have a duty to report it to the authorities. In this case, it will be the dean or someone else or your lecturer. So that is very different. And so the fundamental premise of your question needs to be reevaluated. Anyone else? Yes, there's a hand going up here. Can you bring the mic, please?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Ganesh from first year MBA. So, sir, you've told about a mediator who can, resolve disputes between corporate entities as well. So, how is a mediator different from a legal advisor in a business? So, a mediator should be in a corporate entity, or is he kind of an, higher kind of thing, or?
No. Okay. A legal, please sit down. A legal advisor is an in-house employee of the business, of the company. A mediator can be anybody, be an outsider. Ideally an outsider, but it can even be an insider, because sometimes, let me give you a very simple example. If you assume the revauniversity to be a corporate entity, which technically it is, but you may not be able to think of it like that because it's an educational institution. But let us assume, for the sake of argument, to illustrate your point, that there is a dispute in Reva between two deans, the deans of two schools, two faculties. Now, it is perfectly possible for the chancellor to be a mediator. Okay. Now, or for that matter, if Reva has got a legal advisor, it's possible for the legal advisor to be a mediator. But once he or she becomes a mediator, they will not be the legal advisor. They will remove that role, like I answered the question previously. So a mediator is an independent person, but who will be trusted by all sides. So you don't have to have a legal qualification to be a mediator. Suppose a dispute is about a very technical thing in a company, engineering dispute. It is perfectly possible for the managing director who may have engineering qualifications to act as a mediator. So this is very, very flexible. Okay? Yeah, a hand right at the back. Can you take the mic there? Sorry, did you want to ask a question? I'll come back to you because that hand has been going up there, and I'll remember to come back to you.
So very good morning, sir.
Very good morning.
I'm Aravindan from RBS, sir.
Yeah.
So I have one question. So as you are told, we have traditionally practicing, like there is India, we have one kind of practice called Panchayat Raj.
Correct.
So that is kind of a mediation practice which we do have.
Yeah.
So my question is, so they will be having their own policies and norms for their provinces only. So most probably if they are from rural area, so they will be adapting certain rules and regulations which will be prevailing under that rural provinces only. So if they are solving that dispute there, so if it is not applicable to the law which is going on in India, like say for an example I can give, so if a person, two parties has a dispute and one party has asked to, so it has been proven guilty and one party is asked to go out of the village, so that is against the law of India, so which we need not ask that the party to go out of the residence. So this is against the law of India. So how do you take that, sir? So if that mediation goes wrong or right?
Okay, do sit down.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry to say that the scenario you've outlined is very, very confusing. You need to clear many things in your mind. So first of all, you say it is against the law of India to send somebody out of their house. That is not correct. Okay, there is no law in India which says you can't send somebody out of their house. Okay. Secondly, when a panchayat person, because a panchayat as a group cannot be a mediator, it has to be somebody from the panchayat, acts as a mediator, then they will not apply the rules of the panchayat. You should forget that completely. In mediation, you are trying to find a non-legal method of resolving a dispute. What is the point in having a mediation if you do something which the court does? Then you might as well go to court. This is a completely informal attempt at finding a solution. Of course, sometimes the law will have to be referred to. So if somebody breaks a law, then you can't tell them, oh, that's all right. So that will have to be addressed. So I'm sorry to say that the scenario you presented was very, very confusing. I don't really have anything further to say. Yes, just bring the mic here, please.
Hello. Good morning, Dr. Iyer.
Good morning.
So this is Ayush Kumar. So actually, I don't have any specific question. As I can see you are a barrister and a senior lecturer who would like to advise people as well. So what would be the one legal regulations you would advise RBS youths as well, and one life lesson you follow and you would like to share it with?
The first question was, what is a legal lesson, did you say?
No, the first
revolution, did you say?
first legal regulations which
Regulations.
which everyone should be aware of.
Right.
And the second thing is one
Life lesson.
Okay. You address.
Okay. Unfortunately, I cannot find any answer to the first one, because one legal regulation, absolutely not. I mean, particularly because you use the word legal. The only thing I can say, this is not a regulation, but this is a very simple piece of advice. Try never going to court if you can avoid it. Okay, there are two places that a human being should avoid going throughout their lives. One is a court, the other is a hospital. Okay, unless of course you happen to be a doctor or a lawyer, but not as a client or as a patient. That is the only thing that I can say. Possibly also, in very general terms, advise you all to try to learn as much law as possible in a general way, not by going and getting an LLB degree, but generally you should be aware of law. And that is one of the reasons why during my visit to Reva this time, I'm running a course on essential law for non-lawyers. So any of you who is interested could have enrolled on this course. It's 2 weekends. One weekend is already over. There's one more left for next Saturday. You can get in touch with the people concerned, and they will probably ask you to fill a form or so. The second one is also difficult to answer in a short time, but that is at least possible to answer, and that is one word: education. Life lesson: education. Throughout your lives, continue to learn from different sources. I don't mean education in the formal sense. You're all so lucky, your generation, because there is so much knowledge and information available to you in a way that was not available to people of my generation. And I'm talking particularly about digital resources. My God, the amount of information and knowledge you have is staggering. So education is the key. Okay? Sorry that I've not been able to give you a more profound answer. Okay, anybody else? Oh, there's a hand again right at the back. So we seem to sort of zigzagging. Never mind.
Sorry to question again, sir, but on the same lines where other 2 or 3 questions have asked.
Yeah.
So when mediating, we have to disregard the actual role that we take up in the society, right? So in that line, the mediator should gain the trust of both the parties who are in dispute, and the settlement should please both the parties. While in court or in panchayat, it was supposed to punish one and then give justice to other. But in mediation, the outcome should be plausible to both parties that are involved. Is that my understanding is correct?
Generally speaking, yes, but I would make one small change to the word you used, and that is not please both the parties, because that would be sometimes impossible. Because remember, when a dispute arises and an attempt is made to resolve the dispute, usually each party will have to give something to get a satisfactory solution. Usually. Sometimes only one party will have to give, the other party takes. So pleasing is not the objective. You cannot please people all the time. But what you can do is to make them comfortable with the solution that has been attempted. They should not be unhappy with the attempted solution. And that requires a lot of skill on the part of the mediator. So that to that extent, I would modify what you said, but otherwise, absolutely right. Okay, anything else? Okay, one more question here in keeping with our pattern of going from the front to the back. So now you come from the back to the front. Yeah, just pass the mic on.
So one more question actually.
Yeah.
I've got some clarity when you gave that answer, but then if in case of an international dispute and the mediator gives a solution, if that solution is kind of biased, so at that time what they'll do?
Very simple. The parties don't have to accept it. Okay. This is a voluntary process. They can withdraw any time. Okay, unlike in a litigation. No problem. Okay. Okay, is that it? If there is any other hand, please raise it high, because I can't, there's a lot of light coming, I can't see fully. So if there is no question, not to worry, we have come up we're coming very close to 11:30, and I think you may have other classes to attend. So I'm quite willing then to stop here if that is your wish. Okay, all right. So I will wish you all the very best. Yeah, that's your sheet. Okay. Okay, I'll just wait here.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful session. The knowledge you have shared today will be incredibly valuable to us as we navigate further in our future. Now, let us. Thank you so much, sir, for engaging so brilliantly with us and clearing our doubts. On behalf of management, staff, and students, I'm glad to be standing here to express my gratitude. A sincere thanks to our esteemed guest, Dr. Venkat Iyer, for accepting our invitation and sharing the insights and expertise in the role of mediation training, which are invaluable. And we genuinely appreciate him sharing his time with us. Finally, I would like to express our deepest thanks to our Honorable Chancellor Dr. P. Shamaraju, Vice Chancellor in charge Dr. N. Ramesh, Pro Vice Chancellors, for providing us this valuable opportunity, and all the faculty members, staff and students at Reva Business School for the cooperation and participation. Your presence is what makes these events successful. Thank you all and have a great day.